Hey everyone, thank you for tuning into the Angst podcast. I'm Jericho Judson, and for this episode, I'm going to be ranting to you guys about how habits form. To start off, I want to tell a story about a personal experience of mine that just happened the other week. If we don't know each other or we haven't seen each other, then you wouldn't know that I just finished doing a 7-day herbal cleanse. And don't worry, I don't mean to be pretentious and try to promote any type of vegan cleanses that you guys should do. That's not what the episode is about. Instead, I want to discuss kind of what the 7 days looked for me and how I felt on day 8. Just a little bit of background so you guys know. It was kind of an easy cleanse. I was to take 2 herbal supplements twice a day, a probiotic before bed, and then I had to restrict a couple ingredients from my diet. That consisted of alcohol and gluten, just because those tend to be a little bit inflammatory on the body. I wasn't to have any refined sugars, added colorings or preservatives, artificial flavorings. And last but not least, and this one might have been the hardest, I had to eliminate hydrogenized oils. That would be, examples of those would consist of canola oil, vegetable oil, sunflower oil. Again, I don't want to get into the nutrition side of things in today's episode, but just know that those are typically quite difficult for your body to break down. Those aren't the best fats to be taking in. Instead, things like coconut oil, olive oil, avocado oil, those are a little bit easier on your digestive system and probably better overall for your nutrition in your body. But we'll leave that for a different episode. So now that you guys know what I had to restrict, if you've ever had experiences in trying to, limit those ingredients yourselves or take those out of your diet, then you understand when you go to a grocery store that most of the items that you pick up, or at least packaged or boxed items, actually contain these ingredients. It's very unlikely that some type of granola bar or chips those are obvious examples, but there's going to be a lot of things in your grocery store that would surprise you what they cook with, that they add sugar when they kind of don't have to, or just they add a little bit of a preservative because it has to sit on the shelf. I mean, half of their business model is that they are providing foods that don't need to be refrigerated or well kept, or that you could take camping or store in case of an emergency. I understand that aspect of the business as well, so there is that necessity. But from a health standpoint, you quickly learn that you have to be relatively restrictive. Even though that was a small list of ingredients, it does come up quite often. And I'm not going to say by any means I was perfect in this week. There were a couple of circumstances where I'm sure those substances snuck their way into my diet. Absolutely, I know they did. But for the most part, I did have the cleanse in my forefront of my mind. Throughout the entire 7 days, I planned ahead. I made sure I was consuming a lot of just meats, fruits, and vegetables. I didn't really eat anything packaged or processed, and I cooked a little bit more often than I normally would. And because of that, I'll be honest and say, it was a little bit difficult. It took effort and it took energy and time, and I definitely had to be cognizant of what I was doing and why I was doing it. I want to feel better. I mean, I had been having a little bit of gut inflammation. I was feeling some pain and feedback throughout the day, and I don't want to live that way. I want to get rid of that. So, this is my process or my way of trying to self-evaluate and maybe make some improvements. But what happened on day 8 was kind of interesting, because throughout my normal day-to-day life, I don't really restrict my diet. I try to eat, healthy, or at least care a little bit what I put into my body, but I don't necessarily black and white eliminate anything. I don't just take something out fully. And because of that, on day 8, when the cleanse is finished and I lift the restrictions that I had, I can kind of eat whatever I want. And to be honest, I've been craving burgers. Like, I would love a bacon cheeseburger. That would just be outstanding right now. But the problem is that you feel a little bit of an obligation to the cleanse still. I mean, these are just rules that I set in my own mind. Nobody was enforcing them in any way. And here I am on day 8, a little bit hungry and kind of craving some sugar, thinking about having sugar, but I mean, why? Yesterday, I had just determined that this was an ingredient that's not very good for me, or maybe causing me a little bit of pain or discomfort, and I was eliminating it. So why today would I take away all the work and energy and momentum of the previous week just so I can fulfill a craving? I don't think 7 days is long enough to fully form a habit, but it's certainly enough to get the ball rolling. If you guys have ever had the luxury of your life of being a fit and active individual, if you've gone to the gym quite often, or maybe you bike to work or run or exercise, you play on a sports team or have some type of extracurricular, whatever it may be, if you've maintained a certain amount of fitness in your life, then you understand that once the momentum is there, it's actually not that difficult. Going to the gym or going to the track or swimming or whatever it may be, it's kind of just something that you do. Yes, it takes a little bit of energy, but it's built into your existence. It's part of your schedule. And to be honest, it kind of feels good. If you are somebody who understands the way that oxygen comes into your system and the way that your endorphins get released, and you have had a certain amount of opportunity to exert your body, then you know you can actually feel kind of good after it, depending. As long as you've slept well and you've eaten well and you've given it what you've had and you've earned it, right? You feel kind of good about putting the work in. There's a certain inherent reward system of working hard. And because of that, you can build this into your lifestyle and create this habit and maintain it. It's easier to maintain than it is to start. If you're somebody who's listening right now that maybe hasn't been to the gym in a while or hasn't been to the gym ever in years, then you understand the energy and the difficulties it can be to start that habit. To get off the couch and into the gym, and it takes a lot of work. You don't feel very good. You are super out of shape. You're nervous of people judging you, or maybe you're a little bit self-conscious. I fully understand. It's harder to start new things. But for today, what I want to discuss is I want to talk about a habit that maybe snuck up on us, or it certainly snuck up on me. And I'm willing to admit it's not a habit that I actually really like. It's maybe even more of an addiction. And this is our connection with technology, but more specifically our smartphones. If you guys are listening to this podcast after it's recording, then we're in 2017. And that means that if I'm not mistaken, the iPhone, the very first, the 3G model, is 10 years old. It came out in 2007, or maybe it was late 2006, but I'm pretty confident it was 2007. So let's say that's 10 years ago. Well, I mean, who doesn't own a smartphone nowadays? Who doesn't own an iPhone? A lot of people own iPhones, but I mean, obviously Android is a massive, if not a larger market share. So who doesn't own a smartphone that you know? And who doesn't walk around with it in their pocket all of the time? And I mean, in the last 10 years, that's a lot, right? If everybody in the last 10 years has bought one of these things, and obviously smartphones go back a little bit further than iPhone, but these were definitely groundbreaking moments in history. These were the first couple of really well done app stores, really well done user interfaces, really smooth touchscreen mobile displays. I mean, it fits in your pocket, for crying out loud. We're blown away from the capabilities of these products. And let's put it at, 12 years ago. That's a blink of an eye in human history. I mean, that's half my personal life, but if we talk about human beings just on a societal scale, it's nothing. Yet here it is, integrating itself into every single person's pocket. I recently downloaded an application, and I'm actually going to blank on the name right now. I don't have it on my phone anymore. But the application, the idea behind it was that it would record how long you spent on your phone, but specifically how long you spent on each application. And man, I was kind of disgusted at myself. I think that's why I actually deleted the app, was I couldn't bear to look at this information. I was spending hours a day. Like, I'm talking 10-15% of my entire day on my phone. Just looking at my phone. I'm on YouTube quite often. I mean, here I am making the podcast. I also listen to a lot of podcasts myself, and I use the iOS podcast app. I use Patreon for that. I Reddit quite frequently. And then, I have a couple of social media accounts. I Snapchat and Facebook and Instagram like a large majority of the rest of us. And this is kind of what I'm saying, is that these phones and these smartphones and this technology has crept its way into our life, and it seems so commonplace. Yet for most of us, all of our parents and our grandparents and our family didn't even have this technology for a large percentage of their life. They've grown up for, 30, 40, 50 years, and they didn't have anything like even the internet or smartphones or anything that you could take around or have mobile devices. That was an absurd idea. I mean, a cell phone itself is an absurd idea to grandparents. It's a brilliant technology that's obviously changed the world. And look at how fast it's changed all of us. I mean, is this a good thing? In a lot of ways, yes. I've already listed off a couple of variables like looking up locations or finding ratings or reviews for restaurants. I mean, you can buy concert tickets on the fly, whatever it is. These are obviously things that have enhanced our lives. That's why we buy them. They're cool toys and they have a lot of benefits. But what's the con of looking at a phone screen all the time? If we develop this habit, we understand it's really hard to break. I actually feel a little bit lost without my phone. If I don't have my phone on me, if I leave the house and I realize I didn't grab my phone, even if it's just going to the grocery store or getting gas or just whatever it may be, maybe I'm going to a movie. What do I need my phone for at the movie? I still feel a little bit naked. I mean, how am I going to contact the outside world? What if something happens? What if I get lost? What if I lose my wallet? Like, I don't know. What if I can't get in my car? You kind of get a little bit paranoid. And to the other certain extent is that I think it can take away from a little bit of human interactions. I think that I work in a restaurant industry, and I see a lot of people that come out and dine together and they have meals together. And there are certain individuals that will sit down at these tables, and I'm talking for an hour and a half, 2 hour dinners, a large percentage of their life, and they will barely communicate. They'll sit down and they'll look at their phones and they'll play games or they'll text or they'll do whatever. And I mean, this isn't everybody, this is a small population, but I see it a lot in children as well. I see it in individuals that are growing up in a world where these phones exist, and I see kind of bratty kids and tired parents. And I see 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 4-year-olds with the iPad or with the iPod and whatever it may be. They're playing a game and they're watching a movie, and dinner rolls around, or they have to look at me and they have to order something or they have to speak, and they won't. They look at the phones and they're disgusted that the parents are trying to get them to take away their game or not pay attention to the screen or not get sucked into the little device. The problem is that we've all formed this habit in our adulthood, but there is generations that are going to be coming up that are 100% integrated with this technology. And it wasn't necessarily a choice or a habit that they had an opportunity to make. These devices are so integrated and almost necessary to our society, your parents are going to expect you at a certain age to be able to contact them. If at the age of 13, you want to go out and hang with your friends and go to the mall and take the bus, a lot of parents are going to be a little bit paranoid about that fact, and they're going to want you to be able to communicate with them, and they may get you a phone. And once you have that device and once this habit gets introduced to yourself, we can all agree it's very hard to give up. I've debated going back and getting a flip phone. I really have. I think that there's a certain advantage to just being outside and in society and just interacting with people around you and finding things to do. I think there's importance in being bored. I think if you're bored, it forces your mind to wander and it forces you to come up with new ideas or gain motivations or plan things out. I mean, you have to think. And the problem with a lot of these phones is that whatever setting you find yourself in, whether you're bored at home waiting and killing some time before your friend picks you up, whether you're in a doctor's office, whether you're waiting for the bus, whatever it may be in your life, you can just kind of whip out your phone. And you can look down and it's very habitual. You'll just check Twitter or go on Reddit or take whatever it may be, some selfies and send some Snapchats. I mean, you can just fuck around on your phone. There's entertainment value. And in a lot of ways we like that, but it changes the natural processes of the human brain. It takes away your downtime throughout your day. If all that you do is in your day is function with other individuals and then perform tasks and then constantly be going, and you never have a second to kind of sit in your own head and think about your own thoughts, if every time you have with yourself you use it to pull out your phone and connect with the world or play a game, then I mean, how much growth are you having as an individual? How much intellectual conversations are you having with your own little thinking voice? We've talked a lot about free will on this show, and I think that there's an importance in entertaining what thoughts come into your head and why they come into your head. I mean, we've already established you might not be the individual that's putting them there, so maybe you should pay attention from them to time. And instead of what's going on is that your phone comes out of your pocket and you tap into this digital display. And then not only that, you get marketed information that you might not necessarily have asked for. Well, what's going to happen? I think one of the craziest parts about what's going on with this addiction is that there's not laws written for this stuff. Let's look at an example. If you go into social media, a lot of what's happening right now is that you're starting to see more and more advertisements. People ask all the time, how does Twitter, how does Facebook, how does Instagram make money? I mean, these are services that you don't pay for. But the thing is that these are the largest social media services in the world. They have a very large user base. So people spending time on their service gives them value, because that means that they can sell their services to advertisers, or in theory, they could sell them to advertisers. It's not that they have, but it's that they could if necessary. That in itself creates value in the company. The fact that if they wanted to, they could sell to a certain amount of people, that gives them power, and that gives them value. Because of that, these people have slowly but surely started to integrate advertisements into your lives. Let's look at Instagram. What happened with Instagram was when it first started, the idea was that it was to share photos with your friends and your families and your peers, your coworkers, whatever it may be. You could just post photos about your life, make comments, and see each other's day to day. That's kind of fun. That's innocent. There's nothing wrong with just experiencing your friends' lives and seeing what they got going on and then talking about it. In fact, that's kind of cool. I think that's why we all signed up. Eventually what Instagram did is that they ripped off Snapchat and they put those Instagram stories in at the top. If you use Instagram, you've seen them and probably viewed them. That's a really nice tricky feature, because what it does is it takes away even the little tiny work that your thumb has to do to scroll through a regular Instagram feed. Normally you'd have to scroll stop, make your way down photo through photo, and that takes a little bit of effort from your thumb. But if you go into those Instagram stories, they autoplay. They just go through on their own. You can just tap it once and they'll just play. You can just sit on your fat ass and watch it go through. You don't even need to have a little thumb tap. It'll just keep happening. And you don't have to scroll, stop. You can just have a little tiny touch if you choose, or a little tiny flick. It's a lot easier. It's a lot easier for you to maintain time on the site. It's easier for you to just go through photo after photo after video after photo and just spend time on their site. And that's what they want, so they can sell information and time to advertisers. What Instagram has done is that they've now integrated ads. So instead of looking at your friends and your family and the cool photos that you've decided to see, every once in a while you just have to be advertised to. And I mean, I guess that's fine. It's a private company. They can do what they want. But the problem is it's coming up more and more. And now it's in the middle of those Instagram stories as well, as you'll just be auto watching and all of a sudden you'll auto watch an ad. Guys, that's a commercial. If you're just watching your friends post funny videos and all of a sudden you just get a commercial and an advertisement in the middle, what the fuck is that? I didn't sign up for this. I didn't pay for this service. But I mean, I guess that's how they're going to make their money, and it's their service and their time. But what if the ads become more and more frequent? And what if these ads actually become a little bit creepy? I mean, they're already using a lot of the metadata of our devices, what we search on the internet, what websites you're using, who your friends are, and what you talk about. And they take that data and they give it to advertisers. How often have you guys started to see that if you go into a website, within the next day or 2 days, you'll be on Facebook and there will be an advertisement for that website or that product that you were looking at? They're trying to tempt you. They're taking this information and they're trying to make you buy something. To a certain extent, this is kind of creepy. They're gathering information about you. There's not laws written about this. They're gathering up data about yourself. They're trying to create a little profile of who you are, and they're trying to market specifically to you. A lot of people are kind of okay with this, but here's a gray area that I want you to think about. We've already discussed a bit of ethics in previous episodes, and the problem is that these people can have unethical ways of targeting you. Let's say that you're somebody that suffers from a little bit of depression or maybe a mental illness. From time to time, you might be a little bit bipolar or even somewhat self-destructive. If these social media accounts are monitoring your activity and they know what websites you're on and what conversations you're having, maybe they know that you're having a little bit of a difficult time with your boyfriend or your girlfriend or your spouse, and maybe they know that you've had a bit of an argument or that you're searching up things that you wouldn't normally search up or that you've said things that you wouldn't normally say. Because of all this data, what they can do is they can say that you're in a self-destructive time period. They know that you're a self-destructive person because typically you go off on benders and it's cyclical in your social media account. So you usually post about it or complain about it, whatever it may be. And now what they'll do is they'll target an advertisement to you. Let's say it's Vegas. And they'll say, hey, we know you're having a rough patch in your relationship. And they'll pop up a flight to Vegas ad, a cheap flight to Vegas. Or maybe it'll be Ashley Madison. You know, that website that you can sign up and you can, essentially it's a dating website for cheating. Maybe it'll show one of those. Maybe it knows you're in a low part of your relationship or that you guys are having a fight over Facebook. It's looked at all of that text and information and it says, okay, sure, let's throw them an advertisement for Ashley Madison. Let's tempt them. It's their choice. They still get to decide. But here is a company that's taking data about you. It's taking your ability and your addiction and your habit to sit on their site all the time. And then it is going to throw information to try to get you to make a decision and influence you. Is that ethical? I mean, this is kind of a new system. We already said this is only 10 years old. There's not laws written about this. Who's to say an advertiser can't take in a little bit of data that you willingly give them, you willingly put up on their website or their company's, what's the word I'm looking for here? Servers. If you're going to put information on their servers, I mean, you kind of signed up for that. And now all they're going to do is just try to give you an advertisement that's best suited for you. It's a personalized experience, if anything. Isn't that what we all want? More personalized experience? I think it's just kind of weird, guys. I think it snuck up on us really fast and it's gaining a lot of momentum still. This is only a couple years old and it's already so deeply integrated into our lives. It feels so natural and normal, but it's not. It's foreign and it's different. And we need to be wary of it. We need to be self-aware of it, that's for sure. Anyways, guys, I'm going to cut it there just because we are getting into a little bit of a longer one. I always appreciate you guys listening. It really does mean a lot. If you guys don't know, I recently started a Patreon page. This is a bit of an effort for me to get the podcast out and off of YouTube. I know a lot of people are mostly just interested in the audio and not as much in the Overwatch of the video games in the background. So if you guys are interested, check out the website Patreon or download the app. My name's Jericho Judson or the Angst podcast on there. And that's a good way just to download the audio files and take it on the go. Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in for this episode. We'll catch you all next time.